Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Nirvana crossover dress deck profile for February 2024. Wanted to update the deck with the new deck changes made for the Cardfight Vanguard D format, now with the decks comprised of 54 cards, with 4 cards being in the ride deck and 50 in the main. Wanted to adjust some numbers for those looking for a crossover dress deck, since the latest set that had support for it being the Flight of Chakrabarthi set. With all the new crossover dress support, made some adjustments to the deck to incorporate the new numbers, and also just some of the numbers changed from the last time I updated the deck in general. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the ride deck. Our starter is still Surprise Egg when rode upon. If you went second, draw a card. Our starter, our grade 1, is Heart Pounding Blaze Maiden Reno when rode upon by Snuggling Blue Blaze Maiden Rayu. Search your deck for up to 1 Trickstar, call to rearguard, and shuffle your deck. So setting up the 1 of 2 needed cards, including the Trickstar and the other one being the Prayer Dragon for the crossover dress play. Our grade 2 is Snuggling Blaze Maiden Rayu when rode upon by Chakrabarthi Phoenix Dragon Nirvana Jiva. You check top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 Prayer Dragon from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck, needing the second card for you to use for your crossover dress play. And our grade 3 is our Chakrabarthi Phoenix Dragon Nirvana Jiva, along with the copy we are running in the ride deck. We also run the 3 additional copies in the main deck as well for the Persona Ride power. And on the Vanguard Circle, once per turn, you can discard a card from your hand, choose up to 1 Trickstar and 1 Prayer Dragon from your drop, and call them to rear. So if your rear guard that is in crossover dress state is retired while having the Trickstar and the Prayer Dragon, you'll at least have the 2 in the drop zone to grab back onto the field, just giving up 1 card to get 2 to use for your crossover dress play. And on the Vanguard Circle, when this unit attacks, counterblast 1, choose 1 of your rear guards in the crossover dress state, and stand it, giving you the multiple attacks also for a turn, being able to attack twice with 1 crossover dress unit. Depending on that unit, you can have some pretty heavy pressure as well against your opponent. But our main go-to unit that we want to get out in this deck for crossover dress is the grade 3 Blazing Holy Sword equipped Straw Virena, running 4 copies of this card in the deck, needing for crossover dress 1 Trickstar and 2 or more Prayer Dragons with different card names. From the front row rear guard during your turn, if it's in crossover dress state, it gets plus 10,000 power, and all your Vanguards with Nirvana and their card name get triple drive and plus 10,000 power. So you'll have a 23k power Nirvana Jiva on its own with triple drive pressure. And also, when this unit's in crossover dress state and stood by your Vanguard's ability, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, counter +1, stand all of your Talisman or Prayer Dragon rearguards, and if this unit has 5 or more original dress, to remove all markers on your opponent's rearguards. This is mostly meant to get rid of the Dragon Tree markers, but just having options for other ones as well is pretty useful, while being able to also restand your other crossover dress units for multiple attacks more than just the 4 we mentioned before as well. And then for the other grade 3, I run 1 copy of Bram Virena, just having some rearguard retire power in the form of a grade 3 crossover dress that can get plus 10 on its own, and then an additional plus 10 if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, putting it at 43k if you were to Persona Ride, then just needing a Soul Blast for you to retire an entire column of your opponents. For the grade 2s, I run 3 copies of Mirror Reflecting Equips Mirror Virena, being able to equip 2 different Virenas from your drop as this unit's original dress when it is in the crossover dress state, and when it attacks, you either have the choice to give it plus 10 till the end of the battle, and then also either dropping a card with Virena as its original dress to draw a card, or countercharge 1, making up for some of your counterblasts you may use in the deck, or if you have, counterblast to spare, giving you some more hand consistency by letting you draw a card. With the other grade 2 card that we use for crossover dress being Sturdy Wall equipped Vils Virena, I think that 9 total crossover dress is a fine number with the 50 card main deck that we now have, and having a Vils Virena for additional defense is just an added bonus to have as a needed intercept against your opponent, and then also having a card that can add cards back from your drop zone to your hand. For the Prayer Dragon grade 2s that we run, 4 copies of Blazing Heavenly Render equipped Dragon Aparajaya. When placed on rear, the other from the deck. So last 1, discard a card from your hand, search your deck for up to 1 Prayer Dragon, call to rear, and shuffle your deck. So we have other pretty good targets to add for the Prayer Dragons, including Launchard, just giving you another grade 2 onto the field. And when this card becomes an original dress, you can draw a card, choose one of this card's outer dress. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, it cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, protecting some of our bigger, overdress units from being retired by or chosen by our opponent's cards. And also the 2 copies of the Explosives Equipped Dragon Launch Shard for the rest of the grade 2s that we run for the deck, being able to provide boost if you have a rearguard with Crossover State. And when it's discarded from hand for the cost of ability of your Vanguard with Nirvana, you can Soul Blast 1, call it to rearguard, making it a pretty ideal cost to discard for Jiva, then just to place it back onto the rearguard again. For the grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Illuminate Equipped Dragon Growlumir. It helps to set up some other Overdress or Nirvana cards in the drop zone with a Soul Blast 1, checking top 7 cards of your deck, choosing 2 cards with Virina, adding 1 to your name into your hand, and then dropping the rest when it just becomes an original dress. So it's one of the more preferred cards to use for the original dress power, because then you'll have the option with this card to search out what you need for a potential second Crossover Dress rearguard to use. And then also the 2 copies of Strike Equipped Dragon Stragaglio, being able to search out a Trickstar or even just call one out from the rearguard. So when it's placed on rear, you could have a Vanguard with Nirvana in its card name. You can discard a card from your hand, search your deck for up to 1 Trickstar. We don't run any Overdress units in this version of the deck, so it's mostly just for a Trickstar search, but when it becomes an original dress, you can call out another Trickstar from the drop zone back to rearguard. With the last of our grade 1 Prayer Dragons being 1 copy of Crushing Equipped Dragon, Katya Guard, and 1 copy of Blaze Heavenly Slash Equipped Drahas. For Drahas, being able to have more Blazing Heavenly search options, and then the Soul Charge Power thanks to Katya Guard when you use this one. And then for our remaining grade 1s, the 1 copy of Elementary Sanctitude and the 3 copies of Sparkle Rejector Dragon for our Sentinel lineup in the deck. Just having more of a option to defend against the grade 3 decks, especially with the Drajul deck that has now a grade 4 option as well. And then just having the discard cost not needed if we only have 1 other card in our hand thanks to Sparkle Rejector Dragon. For the grade 0s, we have the 4 Trickstar. Most important card, I would say, in the deck, just needing it for all of the Crossover Dress plays. It can be searched out thanks to our Ride deck, and then having other options like Stragaglio, being able to add this card onto the field or back from the drop zone, just needing multiple Trickstars for a good amount of our different Crossover Dress plays also. And then for the trigger lineup, we're running the 7 criticals, so 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon and 3 copies of Blaze War Monk Sogyu for added pressure, especially when our Vanguard has triple drive and being able to swing with those numbers against our opponent for added pressure with our restanding Crossover Dress rearguards. The 4 copies of Flare Veil Dragon for the additional 10k shield that this card can provide, as well as just giving us more cards in our hand. And for our heals, I'm just back down to running the 4, generic heals, Blaze Maiden, Rioni. Just a lot more consistent than having to rely on special ability heals against our opponent, depending on, a special move they might need or if they have a grade higher than our own Vanguard. With our Overtrigger being the Drag Veda for restand power with our Vanguard, it can be all the scarier for that restand and then just being able to use Nirvana Jiva over again, since when it attacks is not a once per turn. So if it does restand by our Overtrigger, we can use the restand power of Nirvana Jiva over again as well if we have the Counterblast to do so. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, with the new addition to 54 cards now for the deck total, I wanted to update the deck just to show you all what it consists of. And I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.